Hi everyone, welcome to this series of lectures on reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning. In this series of lectures, we are going to understand all the fundamental concepts related to reinforcement learning that are used in LLM reasoning. I have created these lecture series for people who do not want to spend an enormous time learning reinforcement learning concepts so that they can understand LLM reasoning. I have very carefully selected those topics which are actually used in LLM reasoning from reinforcement learning, and I've taken special care of making sure that I go deep into those topics which are used for LLM reasoning and touch the topics which are not as important only on a surface level. So, having said that, let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to see all the topics that we are going to learn in this course related to reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning. So we are going to start with the introduction of the course, and then immediately we are going to see that why do we need reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning. Remember that reinforcement learning is not the only way we use for LLM reasoning. There are other methods as well, and then we are going to cover all the basic elements of reinforcement learning. We are basically going to understand all the elements that are present in an reinforcement learning problem. Once we understand what is a reinforcement learning problem, how is RL important for LLM reasoning, and what are the elements that are used in reinforcement learning, we are going to understand the core value framework. Now, the core value framework starts with the value functions and return. The concept of return and value functions is extremely important because it is used in all the reinforcement learning algorithms. If you do not understand what are the value functions, what is a state value function, and what is an action value function, it is highly unlikely, I would say almost impossible, that you can understand a reinforcement learning algorithm. Same goes for the concept of return. The concept of return is used in all of the reinforcement learning algorithms, and you have to develop the right mental model for the concept of return so that you can truly understand those reinforcement learning algorithms. If you make any mistake in your mental model with respect to value functions and return before you start to learn those complex algorithms, it is going to be catastrophic. So we are going to develop a strong intuition and mental model for value functions and return, and then we are going to move to one of the most famous equation that is used in reinforcement learning, which is the Bellman equation. The Bellman equation is going to help us find the values of states and state action pairs, and then finally in the sixth part we are going to see that how can we use everything that we have learned so far to update the value of a state, which is the most fundamental thing we do in reinforcement learning. We start with a randomly initialized environment, and we update the value of the things that are present in our environment. So understanding how do we update the value of state is super important because it is something that is reinforcement learning is based on. Then we are going to understand the difference between temporal difference versus Monte Carlo method of updating the value of a state. So there are two famously known methods to update the value of a state. One is the temporal difference method and the other one is the Monte Carlo method. Understanding the difference between temporal difference and Monte Carlo is also very important because it is going to help you understand generalized advantage function. So once you have understood the upper half of this learning material, you would have enough knowledge to read any reinforcement learning algorithm, any reinforcement learning paper article, and you would be able to understand most of it. But in the next section we are going to cover those algorithms which are used in the LLM reasoning with respect to reinforcement learning. So first we are going to understand what is an advantage function, because developing a mental model of an advantage function is really important. This advantage function is going to serve as a criteria for us to improve an action, or improve the probability of an action, or uh, do not improve the probability of an action. Once you develop the right mental model for an advantage function, then we are going to move to generalized advantage function, which is the state of the art methodology used in all of these famously known algorithms for LLM reasoning, PPO and GRPO. Once you have understood till generalized advantage function, we are going to start understanding the policy gradient algorithms. So both of these PPO and GRPO algorithms actually belong to the policy gradient algorithms family of reinforcement learning algorithms. We are going to develop a very strong intuition of how a policy gradient algorithm works, how the values get updated and everything. So by the end of the phase 3, you would have all the necessary knowledge of reinforcement learning to understand LLM reasoning. And then we are going to understand there are two famously used reinforcement learning algorithms for LLM reasoning, which are PPO and GRPO. We are going to understand how PPO works for LLM reasoning, and then we are going to understand the shortcomings of the PPO algorithm, the computational complexity of PPO algorithm, and how does GRPO solves it. And then in the end, we are going to summarize everything that we have learned. We are going to review everything we have learned. We are going to make sense of everything we have learned, and then we are going to focus on the frontier of reinforcement learning in LLM reasoning. We are going to see that where is the state of art in reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning, and what you can do with all the knowledge that you have gained so far. There is a possibility of a 14th lecture or for a 14th part where I'm going to code everything so that you would have a concrete practical example at your hand as well. I'm not 100% sure about the code, but I will try to do so. So yeah, this is basically an overview of everything that we are going to learn in this course. Thank you. See you in the next lecture. Hi everyone, I am recording this video. After I have recorded all of the content for this series, and I have just realized that in some of the videos there is unnecessary fan noise that can hinder your learning. But what can I say? I made a huge blunder that I did not check the videos that I'm creating after creating them. When I initially started creating them, I checked the first one or two videos. They were fine, the visuals were fine, and the audio was fine. But then the environment got hot and I turned the fan on, and now I've realized that in some of the videos, not entirely, but in some of the videos, in some part of them, there is fan noise that might not be very comfortable to hear. But nevertheless, I totally believe that the content that has been created, the content that has been delivered, is going to be tremendously helpful. So for anyone who is trying to learn reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning, so please bear with it. Along with that, I also want to tell you that I have created these videos in a very laid back style. I have tried not to be too perfectionist about them. I've tried to maintain a sense of being laid back in these videos, because it is in my experience that if you try to be perfectionist and if you try to do each thing in the perfect manner, then there are a higher chances that you are going to actually mess up things. So yeah, I've created them in a very laid back style, and I expect the same from you. Please watch them in a very laid back style. Do not be stiff about them. Do not be very hard in your mind that I'm going to learn reinforcement learning for LLM reasoning. Be be very laid back, be very comfortable. Do not think that you are going to watch a tutorial, a lecture. Think that you are going to watch the movie of reinforcement learning. This is the best way that I can explain these videos. Think that you are going to watch the video of reinforcement learning and watch it as so. You can watch it while lying down on your bed or anyway. I do not want you to be stiff. I do not want you to be ready with your notes and with your pencil and notepad. I want you to just watch these videos, develop the intuition, develop the mental concept, understand the math when there is needed. And I will explicitly tell you at multiple times in video that this is the thing, this is the math that you should know, that you should remember, and you should put your mind to understand it. uh, Otherwise, be very comfortable when you are trying to learn the concepts. I've tried my best to explain as much as possible, but according to human limitations, there are sometimes I've not been able to explain the concept in the best possible way, or maybe I was able to do so and I'm overthinking them. So yeah, I am human, you are human, so let's be human as long as we can be. So yeah, enjoy the series and please accept the noises and pardon me for them.